Hello Spanish learners. This is our 33rd Spanish lesson, and we are at www.spanishfreelessonsonline.com. 33 lessons already. That's a lot. Okay, so today we will learn some sentences using words that we have already learned. Okay? All the words except this one that I'll teach you now, we have already used, already mentioned, already learned. Okay? So this is just a kind of review of some of the things we have already seen, so you can see in very simple, very basic and simple conversation between two persons how these words can be used, right, in actual conversation. So in blue, it's one person that is speaking. In black, it's the other person that is speaking. Okay, so these are two persons having a very, very, very basic conversation, right? And you see, well, entonces, this word that we haven't seen so far, this word that has 3 syllables, that is entonces. Entonces means then. This then, look. Then I'll write it in green. Here's green. Oh, here's green. Okay? So, entonces means then. Right? All the rest you have already seen before in our lessons. Oh, sorry, mochila. This means rucksack. Okay, a rucksack. A rucksack. I mean, something, the bag that somebody carries in the back with to carry the books. Okay. Then Martin is just a given name, Martin, like in English. Carlos. Carlos is another given name. It's would be Charles in English. Okay. So let's begin. Here we have question marks, open question marks and close question marks. As in Spanish, you need to open the question mark, okay? ¿Dónde está el libro rojo? That has a tilde there. ¿Dónde está el libro rojo? Where is the book red, or where is the red book? Okay, so in Spanish the adjective goes after the noun, right? You will see this is typical example of how the first comes the noun and afterwards comes the adjective in Spanish. Okay, ¿dónde está el libro rojo? Está sobre la mesa. It is on the table. Está sobre la mesa. No, no está. No, it isn't. No, no está. This is no. No, it is, right? So it isn't in Spanish you would say no it is, right? No está. That is the form. entonces está, entonces está en mi mochila. Entonces está en mi mochila. This means then it is in my rucksack. So the other person replies, aquí solo está el libro verde de historia. Okay? Here, aquí means here. Here only is the book green of history, right? So again, the adjective always goes in the end. So you don't put historia before book, right? Like history book. No. In Spanish, the adjective always goes at the end. So first goes a noun, later goes the first adjective that refers to the book, that it's a green book, right? And after that you say it's of history, right? So de historia. So this would be here only there is the book green of history, right? Or here there is only the green history book. Entonces está en la casa de Martín. Entonces está en la casa de Martín. Then it is in the house of Martín. Right? Then it is in the house of Martín. Or the right way in English would be, then it is at Martin's home. ¿Dónde vive Martín? ¿Dónde vive Martín? Where lives Martín? Martín vive en frente a lo de Carlos. Martín vive en frente a lo de Carlos. This means Martín lives in front to that of, this would be that of Carlos. Right? This is exactly as saying Martin lives in front to Carlos's, right? Carlos is referring to the home, right? This lo is like saying somebody's, okay? You're not mentioning explicitly the object, but the object is implicit here, right? In this word lo. Okay? Like saying in front of Carlos's, okay? The other way of saying it would be this one here. Martín vive en frente a la casa de Carlos. Martín vive en frente a la casa de Carlos. This is Martín lives in front to the house of Carlos. You see here you explicitly mention the house, right? So Martin lives in front of the house of Carlos. ¿Y cuál es su número de teléfono? ¿Y cuál es su número de teléfono? This E, if you remember, means end, okay? The Y for Y. This would be and, which is his number of telephone, right? Or, and which is his telephone number. Again, here you can see first comes the noun and later comes, right, the predicate or the adjective or what refers to the noun, okay? It's not telephone number in Spanish. In Spanish it is number of telephone, okay? Número de teléfono. Here, what I have written between these brackets, you can say it or you can omit it, right? Because it's already implied in the answer, okay? So it's a bit redundant, although it is correct to say su número de teléfono es 542-391-0786, right? You can actually omit su número de teléfono in the answer, okay? Because we already know that we are talking actually about this, right? About the phone number. So the answer can be very short. You can just say es 5, 4, 2, 3, 9, 1, 0, 7, 8, 6. Okay? This would be it is 5, 4, 2, 3, 9, 1, 0, 7, 8, 6. Or his number of phone is the number, okay? Now the answer would be muchas gracias. Muchas gracias, or thank you very much. Or you can omit muchas. You can just simply say gracias, gracias, and that is thank you. And after that, the other person replies de nada, okay? De nada. That is, you are welcome. So before we finish, let me read the whole conversation in normal speed, okay? So you can see how it would be spoken. ¿Dónde está el libro rojo? Está sobre la mesa. No, no está. Entonces está en mi mochila. Aquí solo está el libro verde de historia. Entonces está en la casa de Martín. ¿Dónde vive Martín? Martín vive enfrente a lo de Carlos. Martín vive enfrente a la casa de Carlos. ¿Y cuál es su número de teléfono? Su número de teléfono es 542-391-0786. Muchas gracias. De nada. So this is the end of our 33rd Spanish lesson, and well, this was our first example, just with a conversation, and I'll see you next class. Remember, if you have any questions or doubts, you can send me a message via the contact page in the website, or you can add a comment to the post. Okay? So I see you next time. Goodbye. Hi everybody. This is our 36th Spanish lesson. We are at www.spanishfreelessonsonline.com. In this lesson, we will learn comparisons in Spanish, right, and superlatives. So when we want to say that something is bigger than something else, right? We use these words, and this is actually the beginning, because we'll have more comparisons, right, that are not here. And but here we have some few that we'll begin by learning today. Okay. Now, in blue I have written the words in Spanish, in green the translation in English. So the first word would be mayor and menor. Mayor means bigger, right? Menor means smaller, as you can see here. So you can say mayor que él, bigger than him or older than him. Menor que is smaller than. Actually, mayor and menor mean bigger or smaller, but when referring to people, they mean also older than or younger than. So if I want to say I am older than him, okay, I would say yo soy mayor que él, okay, or I would say he is younger than me. Él es menor que yo. Now, also you can use to compare two things, más and menos. This would be more and minus, okay? More and minus. These words in Spanish are very essential here. For example, you would use más or menos followed by any adjective, okay? Because any adjective is susceptible of being more or less, right? So here, for example, I have chosen these four examples, these four adjectives: big, small, interesting, boring, okay? But you can actually choose and use any other adjective. Here we would say more big. I know that in English it's wrong. You cannot say more big, you just say bigger. But in Spanish it's fine. You can say more big, okay? Actually, you have a word like in English, bigger, right? And smaller, which is mayor and menor. But mayor and menor also mean older and younger, right? So, más grande and más chico are correct in Spanish. Más grande, more big or bigger. Más chico, more small, right? I would say, for example, esto, this, es más chico que esto. This is more small or smaller than this. Now we compare using the word menos, right? Minus literally means minus. Menos interesante. This is less interesting. The word minus means the word menos means minus, but it's also meaning less of something, right? Because here we are actually comparing things. So, menos interesante, less interesting. For example, we would say, this lesson is less interesting than playing, right? I would say, esta clase es menos interesante que jugar. Always when we compare things, we need to use the word que, right? Que would be the equivalent to the word then, right, in English. Then. Actually, que has many meanings, right? But when you are comparing things, que has the same meaning as then, right? Bigger than, más grande que, okay? You can also say less boring, menos aburrido, menos aburrido. These are 4 syllables. Aburrido. Remember, the double R is the rough sound of the R. Okay? Aburrido. Menos aburrido, less boring. For example, I would say playing is less boring than this class, right? I would say jugar es menos aburrido que esta clase, this class, esta clase. Okay, now superlatives, okay? We have seen that mayor means bigger, menor means smaller. El mayor means the biggest. El menor means the smallest. So, el mayor or el menor, the biggest, the smallest. However, while English has this universal article, right, that does not change, in Spanish, depending on what is the object that we are saying that is the biggest or the smallest or the whatever, if it is a masculine object in the singular, we use el. If it is a feminine object in the singular, we will use la. If it is a masculine in the plural, we will use los. We would say los mayores. If it is a feminine object or noun in the plural, we would say las. We would say las menores. Okay? Las menores. Since this word in the infinitive ends with a consonant, it doesn't end with O or A, right? So the word mayor or the word menor doesn't become masculine or feminine, right? But, however, if you want to say a plural, the biggest, but in plural, right, if you're talking about these are the biggest, you would say los mayores. Los mayores. Okay, you see how the word mayor becomes plural here, okay? So, same thing with the grande, chico, you would say grandes, chicos, or chicas. Yes? So this is how we would say the biggest or the smallest. El mayor or el menor. Again, when referring to people, el mayor or el menor can refer to the oldest or the youngest. Okay? When you want to say the youngest of the brothers, you would say el menor. Okay? That would be the youngest. El más grande. This would be the most big. I know that in English it's wrong to say the most big, so it would be the biggest. But this is the word by word translation. The most, and although the most big, el más grande, can be a synonym to el mayor, however, el mayor, when referring to people, usually it means the oldest, and when you want to refer to people and you say el más grande, you usually mean bigger in size, okay? El más grande, the biggest or the most big. El más chico, the most small or the smallest. Again, el menor would be the smallest, but referring to people, it would mean the youngest. El más chico would be the smallest, and when referring to people, it refers to smaller in size. Okay? And chico, you see the word in infinitive ends with O. So this word becomes masculine for the masculine and becomes feminine, adds an A at the end for the feminine nouns. So if I want to say the smallest girl, I would mean la más chica with an A at the end. La, because la is a feminine article, más chica. And if they were many girls, and I'm referring to the smallest girls, I would say las with S because it's plural, más chicas. Okay? You can also compare using menos, menor, or menos as we've seen here, right? That means less or minus. We would say, if we want to say the least interesting, would be el menos interesante, right? The least interesting, or el menos aburrido, the least boring. So if you can see, if you want to compare, this is less than this, or this is more than this, these would be the words for compare, right? Mayor, menor, you see. Más, menos, mayor, menor, you see. Más and menos, right? And mayor, menor. Mayor, menor, and más, menos. Remember these words. The bigger, smaller, or older, younger, and more, less. More or less. Those are very important words, so just try to remember them. And if you want to say the most or the least, you add the article before, okay? Like here, el mayor would be the biggest. El más grande would be the most big or the biggest too. El menos interesante, the least interesting, the least interesting. So you add the article, but also remember that in Spanish, since you have the feminine, the masculine, you have the plural articles, the singular articles, always the article, you have to be aware of the object you're referring to when you say the least or the more, the most, okay? Because if that object is a plural, you need to use a plural article, right? Or if it's a feminine, you need to use a feminine article in singular or in plural. So you need to be very careful and attentive to the object you are referring to, and thus you use the correct article, okay? So this is the end for today's lesson, and next class we will continue seeing some more examples of comparisons and superlatives, okay? And so we will expand this a bit more. So I see you next time. Goodbye. Hi friends. Welcome to our 37th Spanish lesson. We are at www.spanishfreelessonsonline.com. In this lesson, we will continue the same topic we were on last time. In our previous lesson, we had been seeing comparisons, right? Comparisons and superlatives, right? Bigger, smaller, the biggest, the smallest, right? El más grande, el más chico, el más aburrido, el menos aburrido, that means the most boring or the least boring, right? Más aburrido, more boring than. All those things we've seen the previous lesson, although we still haven't seen examples written using those new words, right? Now we have some more cases for comparing and superlatives, okay? So this class we will see these, and afterwards in our next lesson we will see some examples in sentences and phrases. So last time we had seen several examples like bigger, smaller, and I realized I left this one out. This one is also one of the major ones. It's mejor and peor. This is mejor is better, peor is worse, right? Mejor and peor. Each one has two syllables. Mejor, peor. Remember the J pronounces okay? Mejor. And if you want to say the best, right, following the same rule we've seen in our previous lesson, we will say el mejor. That means the best if we refer to a masculine object, okay? If we want to refer to a feminine object, it is la mejor, okay? You see that mejor and peor is a special case because you don't need to use the word más or more, right? Or the word menos, or less. You don't say el más mejor, right? Because it's like saying in English the more best or the more better. And you don't say el más peor because it would be like saying the more worse, right? So these two words behave the same as in English, right? You just say the best, el mejor, right? Only that in Spanish the words for best and better are the same, mejor. The only thing that changes is that you add an article before mejor, and it is the best. And if instead of adding an article before, you add the word que afterwards, right? Mejor que, then it would be, instead of being best, it means better. And the word que is equal to the word then, right? Better than something. Mejor que something, okay? So again, el mejor is the best, referring to something masculine. Or la mejor is the best, but referring to something feminine, right? A feminine object. Since mejor does not, it's an adjective that does not end in O, right? It is not converted to masculine and feminine, right? So you don't say la mejora. Mejora means improvement. It is a different word. right? It's not the adjective mejor. So when it does not finish in O, as we've seen before, the adjective does not change to masculine or feminine, right? However, as we'll see here below, it does change to plural or singular. So, el mejor or la mejor. Same thing with peor or worse, right? The worst, el peor, right? The worst for masculine. La peor, that is the worst for feminine. And the plurals, yes, the plurals, they add an E and an S for the plural, okay? Los mejores, the best, referring to a plural, masculine, or las mejores, the best, referring to feminine, plural. And for peores, we have los peores, that's the worst, for masculine, plural, and las peores, referring to feminine, plural, to say the worst. Okay? So this is all the comparison words and superlatives that we will see so far. And next lesson, in our next video, we will see some examples, some few sentences, okay? So I see you next time. Goodbye. Hi guys, this is our 38th Spanish lesson at www.SpanishFreeLessonsOnline.com. So I need to excuse myself. In the previous lesson I missed this. I had written it in the whiteboard and I forgot. I began with the lower part of the whiteboard and I forgot to explain all this part. So we will see this today, and instead we will see examples and sentences using comparisons and superlatives in our next lesson, okay? So we will postpone that one more lesson, and this time we will learn what this means, okay? When do we use this? So we've seen that if we want to say for example, we would say big means grande, yes? Bigger means más grande. The biggest is el más grande. All that we've seen, we've learned in our last lessons, okay? But there's one more case of superlative, which is lo más grande. Lo, right? Lo is would be like an it in Spanish, okay? But it's used in special situations, okay? So, lo más grande or lo más chico, right? Lo más means the more of something, okay? So, lo más grande would be the biggest, okay? But what's the difference then between lo más grande and el más grande? Both mean the biggest, okay? So the difference is in when we use these two superlatives. For example, lo más grande would be like the biggest of all, okay? What do I mean with that? Because if we say the biggest simply, it's already implying that there's nothing bigger, right? But when we say the biggest, it's usually referring to the biggest among something we were talking about, right? And when we say lo más grande would be the biggest of all. Let me see. I think the easiest way, the best example would be if I say we use mejor, okay, or peor. peor is worse. So el peor would be the worst, okay, as we've seen in our previous class. But when do we use lo peor? Imagine we are speaking about some hardship or something bad that happened, and then we want to add to that information. We say the worst thing of all is that, right? Or like saying above all the bad things, even the worst of all. In that case, in Spanish we use lo peor, okay? We don't say el peor, because el peor is referring exactly to something particular that you have in mind, right? The best or the worst. You know exactly what you're referring to. But when you say lo, you're not referring to something explicit. You're referring to something more abstract, right? Like when you say the worst thing is that blah 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 blah, right? Or you're telling something good that happened, and then you say, but the best thing is, and you add information, okay? That when that best or that worst that is more abstract is lo. Same thing for lo más grande, okay? Or lo más lindo, the most beautiful thing, okay? So when it's when the object it's referring to, it's something abstract and it's not something specific that you're referring, this is the biggest, this one is the biggest, or this one is the most beautiful, right? If it's not referred to and it's something abstract, I'm repeating it because I want you to have this clear, then you use lo. Okay, I think I've repeated that pretty much, okay? So now let's start reading this. Lo más grande. The most big of all would be, okay? I wrote most big between quotes because I know that in English it's wrong. You just say the biggest, okay? But this would be, I wrote it like this because más would be more or most, grande would be big, and this is just for you to understand that we are referring to something abstract, okay? Lo más chico, the most small of all. Lo más lindo, the most beautiful of all. So lindo means lovely or beautiful, okay? Referring to beauty. Lo más feo, the most ugly of all, or the ugliest of all, okay? Lo más feo. Feo, two syllables. Feo, feo. Lo mayor, the biggest or the oldest of all, right? Because mayor means bigger, but when referring to people means older, usually can mean older than somebody, okay? Or the oldest. So we would say, for example, el papá es mayor que la hija. That means the daddy or the father is older than the daughter, okay? So mayor, when you're comparing people, means older. When you are comparing objects, it means bigger, okay? Lo menor, the smallest or the youngest of all, same as with mayor, okay? Lo mejor, the best. lo peor, the worst of all, okay? Also abstract. So these we've seen in the previous lesson, okay? And so take a look at this. When we use lo instead of the articles el, la, los, las, right? Instead of the determined articles, lo is abstract, okay? When we are speaking about something abstractly, the concept of the best, the concept of the worst thing of all, or as a concept, the best or the smallest thing. Just because it's something abstract, this has not a plural or a singular, and doesn't have a masculine or a feminine either, okay? So while when you say el mejor, you can also say la mejor if you're referring to a feminine object, or los mejores if you're referring to plurals, or las mejores for feminine plural, okay? Because you're specifically referring to something, right, that you know what it is. When you use lo, you don't know, it's something abstract, so you are not being specific towards anything. Then there is neither plural, nor singular, nor masculine, nor feminine. So this will always be like this, right? It will never be la or linda. It's just lo más lindo, lo más feo, lo mayor, lo menor, lo mejor, right? The superlative. So this is superlatives in an abstract form, and I think I have repeated the word abstract more than ever in my life, but I really hope that you can get the idea of what this means, when it is used, and in our next lesson I hope we can see some examples on how to use this in sentences, so you can better understand how this works. So I will see you next class, and please, if you have any doubts, you can either send them via the contacts page, or you can post a question on the blog, okay? And I will be happy to reply. So I see you next class. Bye bye. Hello everybody. Here we are again at www.SpanishFreeLessonsOnline.com. This is our 39th lesson, and today finally we will see some sentences to review and to see some examples on the comparison words and superlatives that we've learned in our previous lessons, okay? So these sentences are a bit long, and many of these words you haven't learned yet, and although I will explain them now, it's going to be difficult to remember them. But here in these examples I want to focus more on the fact that you will see how these words for comparing two things are used, okay? So it's not so important that you understand how to structure all these sentences, but the important thing now is that you see how to use this, how to compare things, how to say this is bigger than that, or this is the biggest. That's the focus of today's lesson, and so these are some few examples, and let's begin with the first sentence. First I will explain, I will tell you what the words mean, and then I'll read the sentence. Padre means father, okay? So padre is the more formal way for father. Papa would be daddy or dad, okay? But padre is just father. Mayor que, we've seen it before. It means bigger than or older than. Hija. Hija means daughter. Okay? If you replace the A with an O, hijo would be son. So, el padre es mayor que la hija. El padre es mayor que la hija. This means, I will translate word by word. The father is older than the daughter. Okay? Pero el abuelo es el mayor. Pero el abuelo es el mayor. Abuelo means grandfather. Pero means but. Okay? So this would be, but the grandfather is the eldest. Okay? So see how mayor has a different meaning, changes from older to eldest, right? If you want to compare two things, you add que after mayor, right? Que would be then. And if you want to say is the superlative, this is the oldest or the eldest, would be you add el or the article, whatever, if it's feminine or masculine or plural or singular, right? This is a masculine singular article because it refers to el abuelo. You would say el mayor. And here we say, well, bebé is baby. Here, y el bebé es el menor. Y el bebé es el menor. This means, and the baby is the youngest. Right? Remember that menor means either small or smaller, or also younger when it refers to people. Okay? First, reloj with r, okay, because it's the R is at the beginning of the word. Reloj. Reloj means watch, the watch. Aquel, we've seen it before, means that one. Okay. When aquel has a tilde, it means that one. When it has no tilde here, it just means that, and then you expect to have it has to be followed by the object or the noun. Okay. Este reloj es mejor que aquel. Este reloj es mejor que aquel. This means this watch is better than that one. Okay? So we've seen mayor que is older than or bigger than. Mejor que is better than. Pero el reloj suizo de Carlos es el mejor de todos. Actually, de todos is you can omit it, right? It's a redundancy that you can include or omit, right? It's up to you. But usually, yeah, frequently it's used with or without this clarification that is redundant. Let me translate. But the watch Swiss of Carlos is the best of all. Remember that in Spanish, the more common and usual thing is that the adjective follows the noun or the object. Okay, so it's the other way around in relation to English, okay? In English you would say the Swiss watch. In Spanish you say the watch Swiss, right? So, but the watch Swiss of Carlos, because then you say of whom, right? Is the best of all. Pero el reloj suizo de Carlos es el mejor de todos, if you want to say it. Now here, an example of what we've seen in the previous lesson when we said that if we use lo as an article, which is neither plural nor singular nor feminine nor masculine, right? Lo is different than la or el or los or las. It's just lo. Lo is abstract article, right? It refers to something in general. And here I wrote some few examples for you to see if you can understand this. Lo mejor de todo es dormir. De todo is a redundancy, right? Just to make it more clear. This is the best, or the best of all, is to sleep. Dormir is the infinitive verb to sleep. Dormir. Dormir. Okay? Two smooth R's. Dormir. So, lo mejor es dormir, or lo mejor de todo es dormir. The best thing to do, or the best of all, is to sleep. You see that here, mejor or best is not referring to an object in particular, right? It's just generalizing that the best thing of all is, and that's why here, instead of using a typical feminine, masculine, or plural singular article, it's using the abstract article lo. Another example with peor, which means worse. Let me tell you these words. Pasó is simple past tense for verb pasar, to pass. Pasar is also to happen. So, pasó, me pasó. Remember the possessive, remember this pronoun. Me pasó means happened to me, right? Ayer means yesterday. Fue is the past of the verb to be. So this means was. Was. Perder means to lose. Las llaves. The keys. The keys. So, this would be the worst that to me happened yesterday was to lose the keys. Lo peor que me pasó ayer fue perder las llaves. Lo peor que me pasó ayer fue perder las llaves. This is an example of how we are using again the abstract article lo, right? We are, although we are saying later that the worst thing was to lose the keys, but here we are saying the worst thing, and we are speaking in an abstract way, right? That's why we say lo peor. So I'm more interested here that you learn how to use these lo peor, lo mejor, mejor que, rather than understand how to structure all these sentences that are a bit long for beginners right now, okay? But let me read it one more time. Lo peor que me pasó ayer fue perder las llaves. The worst or worst thing that to me happened yesterday was to lose the keys. The next. Auto means car, as you know. Mío means mine. El auto de Juan es mayor que el mío. El auto de Juan es mayor que el mío. This means the car of Juan is bigger than the mine, right? Remember that mine in Spanish always goes with an article before, right? Mine, ours, theirs. Okay? El mío. And here in this sentence we are seeing a mayor meaning bigger, right? While here we were comparing father and daughter, mayor means older. Here we are comparing objects or things, and mayor means bigger. We are comparing the Juan's car with my car, okay? Pero la camioneta de José, pero la camioneta de José es la más grande. This would be, pero la camioneta de José es la más grande. Pero means but, okay? Camioneta means van, a van, bigger than a car, right? So let's translate. But the van of José is the most big, okay? Remember that más, M-A-S, means more or means most. Here, when we write the word más preceded by an article, right, it means most, okay, not more. To be more, it would be más and que, the word que here, right, like mejor que, when you're comparing two things. Here it's superlative, la más grande, the biggest. So this would be, but the van of Jose is the biggest. Okay, so we've seen it, we read this again. También means also. Bonita means pretty or lovely or nice, right? So this would be, pero también es la menos bonita. Pero también es la menos bonita. But also it is the least pretty or lovely or nice, okay? And we are speaking about the camioneta, the van, okay? In the previous sentence we said that it was the biggest of all, and now in this sentence we say but it's also the least pretty of all, right? Pero también es la menos bonita. Remember that es comes from verb ser, verb to be. It is present tense for the third person of the singular, right? So it means is, okay? Or sorry, it is, because the pronoun is already implicit there. It is. Now we say estudiar. Estudiar means to study, okay? You see it has the same root as in English. Aburrido. Aburrido means boring. We've seen this in the previous lesson as well. Hacer is to do or to make, right? In Spanish it's the same verb. Nada means nothing. Nada, nothing. So, estudiar es aburrido, pero lo más aburrido es no hacer nada. Estudiar es aburrido, pero lo más aburrido es no hacer nada. Let me translate. To study is boring. Estudiar es aburrido. But the most boring thing, right? The most boring is not doing anything, right? Actually, in Spanish, to do nothing, literally you say not do nothing, right? Not to do nothing. It's a redundant way of speaking, but that's fine in Spanish, okay? So again, to study is boring, but the most boring is not do nothing, or not to do anything, which is what actually means in English. And again, see that lo más aburrido, we're also talking about something general, abstract. The most boring thing of all is, and then you say what it is, right? But just being the most boring thing, it's general and abstract. That's why we use lo. So sorry for being so repetitive, but I really hope that you understand when to use lo. I hope that in this lesson you can see when we are using lo, when we are using mejor que, or actually any menos que, or la menos bonita, el mayor, mayor que, menor que, all those comparisons, and also how to do the superlatives. And if you have any questions or doubts or something that was not clear, you can send a message through the blog, okay? So have a nice day. Hi there, welcome to our 40th lesson. We are in our 40th Spanish lesson, and today we will learn the difference between cuando and cuando. Actually, in English they both mean when, but one is when you are making a question, and the other one is when you're answering a question, right? Or when you're just speaking. So in Spanish, one word has a tilde in the A. It's cuando, right? The second case has no tilde, you see, no line here on top of the A. Although the pronunciation is the same, when you write it differently because of the tilde. So we will see this in 5 examples, 5 different sentences. So the first case, we are asking a question. ¿Cuándo almorzaremos? ¿Cuándo almorzaremos? that is, when will we have lunch? When will we have lunch? This is the future tense for the verb almorzar. That means to have lunch. Remember that in Spanish, the person or the pronoun is already implicit in the conjugation of the verb. So if we conjugate the verb, we are already, you can already guess which is a person, right? So here, the person is we, although it doesn't say the word we or nosotros anywhere. ¿Cuándo almorzaremos? When will we have lunch? You can also say, when do we have lunch, right? It's the same thing. You can say it in present tense. ¿Cuándo almorzamos? The answer would be cuando sea mediodía, or when it is noon. Cuando sea mediodía. So when and when. Cuando, cuando. You can see that here there is a tilde and here there is no tilde on top of the A. ¿Cuándo vendrá papá? There should be a tilde there too. ¿Cuándo vendrá papá? When is dad coming? When will come dad? Okay? Will come. This is the future tense of the verb venir, to come. You can also say ¿Cuándo viene papá? Okay? You can say it in present tense. You can say when will dad come or when is dad coming? Yes? In Spanish it's the same. You can say ¿Cuándo vendrá papá? Or ¿Cuándo viene papá? Cuando salga del trabajo. When he comes out of the work. In English it would be when he leaves work, right? Or when he comes out from work. Salga comes from the verb salir, which means go out or come out. ¿Cuándo saldremos? When will we go out? When we, it's implicit, go out. You can also say ¿Cuándo salimos? Right? You can say it in present tense. It means the same thing. You can say when will we go out or when do we go out? Cuando pare de llover. Llover is the infinitive of to rain, right? Llover is to rain. So this means when it stops of raining, right? Actually this means to stop. This is already conjugated, right? The verb in infinitive would be parar. Parar. So when it stops raining. Cuando pare de llover. Now our last example is ¿Cuándo podremos comer? When will we eat? When can we eat? Podremos is future tense of verb poder. Poder. This means to can or to be able to. So, when can we eat? Cuando la comida esté pronta. Cuando la comida esté pronta. This is when the food is ready. Right? pronta or pronto means ready. Since comida, food, right? Since it is feminine in Spanish, la comida, then the adjective that refers to comida is also feminine. It ends in a. If instead of comida we were using a masculine noun, then it would say pronto with an O. Okay? So this is the end of the lesson. You can see when we use cuando with a tilde and when we do not use cuando with a tilde, right? When we use cuando just with a simple A. So I see you next class in our 41st lesson, okay? Take care. This is our 41st Spanish lesson, and this time we will learn how to conjugate the verb hacer. The verb hacer, or H-A-C-E-R, means to do or to make. The verb hacer works indistinctly for both English verbs to do and to make. So that makes it easy to learn because we don't have to think when do we use to make, when do we use the verb to do. In Spanish it's all the same, we just use the verb hacer. The verb hacer belongs to the group of verbs that end in ER, in ER, right? Here, ER. And it is irregular, but just because of the first person, right? For this pronoun, for I. All the other conjugations for the other pronouns are regular, as you can see here. We've seen before how to conjugate the verbs that end in ER, and you can see that this is pretty regular. This is the only exception because it changes the C for a G here, right? Hago. So let's start conjugating for I, right? This is I, you, he, we, you plural, they. Yo hago. Yo hago. Hago. Tú haces. Él hace. Nosotros hacemos. Vosotros hacéis. Ellos hacen. So you can see that the root of the verb remains unchanged here in all the regular conjugations. Yes, and then you have the typical termination for each pronoun, right? Being this the only slight exception. If this were a regular verb for the first pronoun as well, it would be hazo, yo hazo, right? But since the letter C changes its sound for an O, right? This sounds se and this sounds co instead of so, same as in English. So this turned into irregular. So it's yo hago. Also remember that the third person of the singular, he or él, is also for she and for it, right? So in Spanish we would say él for he, ella for she. So this is all we'll do today about conjugating the verb hacer, and next lesson we will start seeing some examples using this verb. Hi, today we will, as we said last lesson, we will start seeing some sentences as examples for the verb hacer in the present tense. Hacer, we've seen, means to do or to make. It makes things easier for us because verb hacer means both to make or to do, so we don't have to think which verb we need to use, right? So verb hacer is almost regular, we've seen, for the present tense. The only irregularity is in one single letter in the first person, right? For I, yo hago. This is the only irregularity, right? We change the C from the root of the verb for this G here. So I've written examples for each of the pronouns, right, using the verb hacer conjugated in the present tense. Remember that in Spanish, since the person or pronoun is always implicit in the conjugation of the verb, we can always omit the person, right, the subject. So we can actually say or omit I or you or he or we or you plural, they. Here I've written one example for vosotros and one example for ustedes. Remember that vosotros and ustedes means exactly the same thing, that is you plural, with the difference that vosotros is used in Spain and ustedes is used in Latin America, right? But it means exactly the same and they're both accepted and correct. Of course, the conjugation is different, right? Hacéis and hacen. So let's begin. Yo hago arroz. Arroz means rice, as I've written here in green, rice. Yo hago arroz. Remember, the double R means you pronounce it R, the hard R. When we say yo hago arroz, we mean I am making rice, or I make rice. We can say I cook rice. In Spanish you can say yo preparo arroz or yo cocino arroz. That would be I prepare rice or I cook rice. But it's also correct to say yo hago arroz. I make rice. Tú haces trampas. Tú haces trampas. Trampas is a plural for trap, right? When we prepare a trap for somebody. But when we say to make trampas or hacer trampas, it means to cheat. So, tú haces trampas means you cheat or you are cheating. Él hace trizas el papel. Él hace trizas el papel. Papel means paper. Trizas means shatters. But when you say hacer trizas, means to shatter or to destroy something. If we are talking about the paper, it means to tear the paper. So here we are saying he tears the paper, or he is tearing the paper. Él hace trizas el papel. Literally it would be he shatters the paper. Nosotros hacemos bien las cosas. Bien means well. Cosas means things in plural. Of course, it is a feminine noun, so we have a feminine and plural article here in las. So, nosotros hacemos bien las cosas. This means we make or do well the things. That would be we do things well. It's a statement. We do things well. Vosotros hacéis vuestra tarea. Vuestra is your. Tarea is task, as it's written here in green, task. Since tarea is a feminine noun, vuestra is here ending in an A, because it's also feminine, right? Vosotros hacéis vuestra tarea. You make or do your tasks or your homework. So this would be you are doing your homework or your task, or you do your homework. Ustedes hacen lío en todas partes. Lío is mess, to make a mess. Todas partes means everywhere. Actually, you can see it as two words. Todas means all, partes means parts. Literally would be all the parts or all parts. But when you say todas partes, as a phrase together, it means everywhere. So, ustedes hacen lío en todas partes. You make a mess everywhere. En todas partes. This would be en todas partes would be everywhere, right? Would be the three words together. Ellos hacen las paces. The word paces is a plural word. It comes from the singular word paz, here. P-A-Z, right? P-A-Z. That means peace, right? Peace. In English, you don't use the plural of the word peace. You don't say pieces, right? You can say peace when you talk about a piece of something, but when you speak about peace, about world peace, that peace has not got a plural. In Spanish, it does when you use it in this phrase. Hacer las paces means to make peace, right? To make peace with somebody. After war, after an argument, after a fight, you make peace. Ellos hacen las paces. They make peace. So, this is the end of our 42nd lesson. Check this out. Vosotros, ustedes, you see, I already mentioned, it means the same thing, but here you can see how the conjugation changes, right? It's different. This is what's used in Latin America, this is what's used in Spain for the you plural, okay? So, I see you next time. Goodbye. So, here we will see possessive pronouns in Spanish. This is a review of our previous lesson where we've seen already, we've learned the possessive pronouns, right? So we are reviewing this important topic, and we are also seeing some examples using this and that. Okay? Some few examples. These are the possessive pronouns in Spanish, right? The ones that are circled in red. Me for my, tú for your, su for his or her, nuestra for our, vuestra for your. This other sentence is this means the same thing as this one, but this is the form used in Latin America. And su for their. Also see here, este and esta means this, right? This for masculine, this for feminine, right? All these are in singular. Aquella and esa mean that. And these are synonyms. You can use aquella or esa in any situation. They always mean the same thing and are correct. Of course, aquella refers to a feminine singular word, right? In this case, it's referring to school, escuela. Esa, also, same as here. It refers to school here, school. That's why it ends in an A, right? And it's singular, it doesn't have an S at the end, because we are talking about one school, singular. And esta means this again, right? You can see the difference so as not to get confused. When it is this and that, esta has a T. When the this one means this always has a T, right? Esa, when it means that, lacks a T, like here, esa. You see there's no T here. It means that. This, 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 that. And here, in green, I've written the meaning of these new words, this new vocabulary. Gato means cat. Casa means house. Esposo means husband. Universidad means university. Escuela, school. Maestra, teacher. Maestra, you can see it ends with an A. It's a woman teacher, a female teacher. If it were a man, it would be maestro, right? So let's begin. Este es mi gato. Este es mi gato means this is my cat. Esta es tu casa. This is your house. Este es su esposo. This is her husband, right? How do we know that this is her and not his? Only because here the word is esposo, husband. Then we assume that this is a her, okay? The word for wife would be esposa with an A at the end, right? Esposa. This would be wife. Esposo, husband. And there are other words to refer to husband and wife, like marido, mujer. But now this one is easier because it's similar to spouse, right? And it's also simple because ending with O, it means husband. Ending with A, it means wife. So we are learning this one right now. Esta es nuestra
universidad. This is our university. Aquella es vuestra escuela. That is your school, your plural. Esa es la escuela de ustedes. That is the school of you, plural. This also means that is your school, right? So these two sentences are synonyms. They mean exactly the same. But this is the form that is used in Spain. This is the form that is used in Latin America. Because in Latin America we don't usually use vosotros and vuestra. We use ustedes, right? And the last example is esta es su maestra. Esta es su maestra. This is their teacher. Okay? There. So you can see that for possessive pronouns, su for their and su for his, her, or its. Okay? It's the same pronoun. So the third person of the singular and the third person of the plural, they share the same personal pronoun, which is su. So that's something you might want to remember. And so how do we know if we are talking about their or her or his? That's only through the context. So this is the end of the lesson. See you next time. Hi there. Today we will see the names of the 4 seasons in Spanish, and also some adjectives referring to each one of those 4 seasons. Seasons in Spanish is called estaciones. Estaciones, right? Estaciones is a plural word. Actually, the singular for estaciones would be estación. This would be season. Estación. So, season, seasons. Las 4 estaciones means the 4 seasons. As you can see, since the singular ends with an N, with a consonant, that's why to form the plural is not enough by just adding an S. You need to add, in this case, an E, letter E, and letter S, right? Letra E, letra S. So, let's start with summer. Verano. 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 3 syllables. Next we have otoño. Remember that this N with this wave on top is called ñ. So this is otoño. Otoño. It would be pronounced similar to the GN in Italian, right? Otoño. Autumn. After that we have invierno or winter. Invierno, 3 syllables. Invierno. Invierno. And our last season is primavera, 4 syllables. Primavera. Primavera. Primavera is spring. So, as adjectives for these seasons, we can say that verano es caluroso. Caluroso means hot. Caluroso. 4 syllables. El verano es caluroso. The summer is hot. Also, depending on which part of the world you are, summer can be either dry, seco, or lluvioso, rainy. So we would say, el verano es seco, or el verano es lluvioso, lluvioso. The summer is rainy. El verano es lluvioso. El otoño es colorido. Colorido means colorful. Colorido. We can say also el otoño es ventoso or windy. El otoño, the autumn, es ventoso. El invierno es frío. Frío means cold. El invierno es frío. Or el invierno es triste. Triste means sad. Triste. 2 syllables. Gris means gray, the color gray. El invierno es gris. The winter is gray. Perhaps in where you are, the winter is rainy, or perhaps winters are dry. Let's say rainy. El invierno es lluvioso. La primavera es florecida. Florecido or florecida means bloomy, right? With many flowers blooming. In this case, since florecido is an adjective that ends in O, and primavera is a noun that ends in A, so it is a feminine noun, that means that the adjective must turn to feminine too. So this should be florecida to refer to primavera. We would say, la primavera es florecida. The spring is bloomy. We can also say, la primavera es alegre, happy or joyful. Alegre, 3 syllables. Alegre. And we can say, la primavera es ventosa, windy. Again, same as with florecida. Ventosa should end with an A because it refers to primavera, which is a feminine noun. And I was starting my sentence always with the article la. La primavera. La is the feminine singular article for a feminine singular noun. Okay? So this is the end of our class about seasons. Have a nice day. Hi there. In today's lesson we will learn some Spanish adjectives and the opposites. And afterwards, in the next class, we will see some examples using these new adjectives and opposites that we'll be learning. So let's begin. We have on the left column, we have the words in Spanish, and on the right, the meaning in English. So the first one today is bueno. That means good. Pay attention to my pronunciation and try to repeat with my same pronunciation so you can start acquiring the Spanish sounds. These are two syllables. Bueno. Bueno. Malo. Malo. Two syllables. Malo. Lindo, or beautiful, or nice. Feo, ugly, or awful. Lindo and feo can apply for a situation, a nice situation, or for something beautiful, for an object, a person. Grande, for big. Grande. Chico, for small. Chico. There's another word for chico, or small, that is pequeño. This would be a synonym. Pequeño. Pequeño. Remember that Q, U, E is que. Pequeño. But since this word is much shorter and more simple, usually this one is more used. Right? So let's learn this one. Chico. Frío, for cold. Frío, two syllables. Frío. Caliente, three syllables. Caliente, hot. Rico, for rich. Rico. Rico. Remember the rough R sound. R. Rico. And pobre, for poor. Pobre. 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 Rico also means delicious. Delicioso would be delicious, but rico means tasty, good, delicious. So rico means rich, but it can also mean delicious. Claro, light. Claro, claro. For dark, we have a word with three syllables. Oscuro, 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 oscuro. Remember always that in Spanish, you read as you write and you write as you read. So that makes it easy to know how to pronounce every word. Let's start again. The first set of opposites is bueno, malo, good and bad. Lindo, feo, beautiful, ugly, or nice and awful. Grande, chico, for big and small. Frío, caliente, for cold and hot. Rico, pobre, for rich and poor. Claro, oscuro, for light and dark. The word claro means light, but it also means of course. So if you want to say of course, you can say simply claro. Okay? And well, today we'll only see these sets of opposites, and in our next class we will see some examples using sentences for each one of these new adjectives. Remember that since these are adjectives, the end changes according to the noun, whether it is singular or plural or feminine or masculine. So, bueno, ending in O, would refer to a singular masculine noun. For example, el niño bueno, the good boy. Right? For chico, same thing, el niño chico. But let's leave this for our next class, and I'll show you how these adjectives change depending on the noun. Hi there. In our previous lesson, we talked about these sets of opposites, right? These are just a very few sets of opposites of adjectives in Spanish, right? Bueno, malo, lindo, feo, grande, chico, frío, caliente, rico, pobre, claro, oscuro. We saw the meaning of each one of these in the previous lesson, so if you don't know what they mean, you can go to the previous lesson, and where I also try to show you how to pronounce them slowly. But here, as I mentioned before, since these opposites are adjectives, and in Spanish adjectives always change their ending according to the noun, whether it is singular or plural or feminine or masculine. So I want to show you these adjectives, which are the possible endings they can have, right? So we've seen that bueno, ending in an O, with an O at the end, refers to a masculine singular noun, right? As for example, el niño, the boy, right? El niño is a masculine singular, right? It's one boy, el niño. So it would be el niño bueno, right? Bueno, it would end with O because it refers to masculine noun and singular noun. And bueno can have these 4 different endings. Ending in O for a masculine singular noun, like niño. Ending in A for a feminine singular noun, like niña or girl, niña. Ending in OS for masculine plural, like boys, plural, niños. Or ending in AS for feminine plural, like girls is a feminine noun and plural. In Spanish would be niñas, niñas buenas, okay? Malo or bad would be, you have malo, mala, malos, and malas, depending on the noun, if it is a masculine singular or a feminine singular, or a masculine plural noun or a feminine plural noun. Lindo or beautiful or nice can be lindo, or linda, or lindos, or lindas. Feo or ugly can be feo, or fea, or feos, or feas. Grande or big can be grande, or grande, or grandes, or grandes. Take a look at this. Here there is a differentiation whether the noun is singular or plural, right? Grande or grandes. But there is no differentiation whether the noun is feminine or masculine. That is because the adjective ends with E, right? It doesn't end in an O or A as the regular adjectives, right? Bueno, lindo, malo, feo, frío, chico. Grande is an adjective that ends in an E, in a letra E. E is letter E. So these adjectives that end in an E, they do not change to masculine or singular, right? The noun can be masculine or singular, but the adjective will not add the ending for masculine or singular. It will just keep its own ending, right? It will keep the E, like here, grande for a boy, or grande for a girl, However, it does simply add an S for plural, right? So grandes for boys or grandes for girls. This applies to all the adjectives that end in E, right? So you can see it. The same thing happens with caliente, with pobre, right? We'll see them now. Let's go to chico. Chico for small. Chico can be chico for masculine, chica for feminine, chicos for masculine plural, chicas for feminine plural. Frío or cold can be frío, or can be fría, or can be fríos, or can be frías, right? Caliente, again, this one ends with E. So this one will not change, will not switch to masculine or singular, but it will switch to plural if it is a plural. So caliente, you see, it has an E and caliente. For masculine singular, this would be caliente. And for feminine singular, it will also be caliente, right? But for plurals, it will be calientes and calientes. Masculine plural and feminine plural are the same. Es. Now, rico for rich. Rico or rica or ricos or ricas, we can say. The rich man, el hombre rico, or the rich woman, la mujer rica, or the rich men, los hombres ricos, or the rich women, las mujeres ricas. Now for pobre or poor. Pobre, remember again, this one ends with an E. So pobre, pobre, pobres, pobres, right? So the two singulars end with an E, and the two plurals end with an ES. Now, claro for light. Claro or clara or claros or claras. Oscuro for dark can be oscuro or oscura or oscuros or oscuras, right? This is also regular. So, when the ending of the adjective is either the typical ending of a plural or a feminine, of a masculine or a feminine, then the adjective switches its ending to masculine or feminine, right? Typical example, O ends in O, right? So it switches to A for a feminine, or vice versa. But when the ending is not the typical ending of masculine or feminine, like E, and E, then there is no changing its ending for masculine or feminine. It only adds an S, as we've seen, to form when it refers to a plural noun, like grandes, right? Calientes. So this is the end of our lesson now, and the next lesson I will show you some sentences using each one of these adjectives, okay? I see you next time.